I personally would literally do anything to find out the info on what it would take to change or improve myself to make it work. But no matter what, when you're figuring it out, your teachability and your coachability, it's everything. Is there somebody that's doing better than you that you can learn from? What areas do you need to grow in? Be honest with yourself. These are the questions that I'm constantly asking myself, and I'm seeking out counsel from people better than me because I'm obsessed with getting better.
I'm like, what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm a living, I'm a live it to death. So what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? And live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm a living, I'm a live it to death. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Living Hope live agency call. And I'm excited for tonight's call. The title in tonight's call was Show Me Your Schedule, and I will show you your results. So there's really three main things that you guys are going to want to keep centered in your business as you continue to grow here. Number one is your why. Number two is this idea of staying coachable. And number three is your calendar. If you can keep these three things at the center of your business, you'll grow. So number one, your why. To really last in this business, you guys have to know why you're doing what you're doing. It's not just about making money, because if it's just about making money, guys, the motivation, it won't last. It has to be deeper than that. You have to start asking yourself the question, what can the money do? How can it change the trajectory of what's possible for you and your family? Who can I help? How many people can I teach the same skill set here to make money at will? These things need to be centered in your mind every day. So that's got to be number one, your why. Number two is this idea of staying coachable, staying teachable. I think a lot of us were tempted to think that when we get a little bit of success, that we're done learning. We create a good system that works for us. We stick to it and we never change it. And I think that if what you're doing is working on a really high level, I do not encourage you to go out and make dramatic changes. If what you're doing is working, keep doing it. But if what you're doing is not working, I personally would literally do anything to find out the info on what it would take to change or improve myself to make it work. But no matter what, when you're figuring it out, your teachability and your coachability, it's everything. Is there somebody that's doing better than you that you can learn from? What areas do you need to grow in? Be honest with yourself. These are the questions that I'm constantly asking myself, and I'm seeking out counsel from people better than me because I'm obsessed with getting better. And guys, if we're not getting better, we're getting worse. We don't just stay the same. I think a lot of us, we tend to reach a point where we stop plugging into calls. We stop plugging into podcasts as much as we used to when we first got started. And I'm totally guilty of this in many different seasons of my career here. And we start saying things like, I got it. It's all good. I already know this stuff. I don't need to tune in or learn this because I already know it. And I'm totally guilty of that. I'm the first person who will admit that. And here's honestly the truth, guys. If you already really knew the information, you would have everything that you want with FFL. And if you personally don't have everything that you want with FFL, then you have room to grow. You have room to learn. I don't personally have everything that I want, and I haven't helped as many people as I'd like to. So I know for a fact that I don't really know the information. So I have to continue to stay teachable, and all of us staying teachable is key. So I think the way that we determine if we're truly teachable is you have to ask yourself the question, how badly do you truly want to learn the information? How badly do you want to learn the information? And what would you be willing to do to learn it? Would you be willing to wake up early and stay up late to learn it? Would you be willing to give up your favorite thing for a year to learn it? You have to have what we call a burning desire to grow yourself and get better in this business. So that's number two, that's staying coachable. And lastly, number three, the topic of this call, which is your calendar. How do we make the most of our time? I think a question, again, we have to ask is, at the end of someone's life, what do they ask for more of? Do they want more money or do they want more time? Everybody's asking for more time at the end of their life. We can always make more money, but the way that we spend our time is everything. I think the problem that most people have, including myself, is that many times in the business is it's the first time that you've ever been your own boss. And to be totally honest, most of us suck at bossing ourselves around. I was really, really bad at bossing myself around. We wake up and we work when we feel like it because we're the only person holding ourselves accountable for the first time. And I think it's important to note that if your why is bigger than money, if your why is bigger than yourself, you'll actually have a reason and a motivation backed by some discipline that will encourage you to make the most out of the time that you have. Okay. So I think this is a pretty good intro, a pretty good preface to this topic. So obviously we titled this call, Show Me Your Schedule, and I will show you your results. And I can pretty confidently say that even if I don't know you and I know nothing about your skills in this business, that if I took a look at your calendar for the last 90 days, I would say 8 out of 9, 8 or 9 out of 10 times, I could probably guess how many families on average you help per month, or what your business looks like and how many families your team is helping just by looking at your schedule. It's that telling. And the goal obviously is to fill our calendars with money-making activities. And I think a lot of us, we head fake ourselves by thinking that we're doing the right thing when we're just doing busy work. We're doing busy work all day, learning about FFL, learning about products, growing my skill set, watching videos, updating my website, making business cards, getting organized for the next time that I do something or anything like that. I consider those to be early in the morning or late at night activities. Okay. And if you find yourself doing these active things versus productive things during the day, ask yourself why. Why am I doing these things? And a lot of the time, honestly, and you might not like this answer, it's because you're trying to avoid doing the actual work. You're trying to avoid doing the real work, and then you're telling yourself that you've been working all day so you don't feel bad. We can tell if this is you if we're seeing the needle progress in a positive direction, or if you're staying the same, or if you're getting worse. That's how we can tell if this is you, if you're doing active versus productive things. And the main thing that we're going to talk about on this call is time blocking. Time blocking your schedule is everything. And we all have lives outside of FFL. And I think in order to find a massive success and learn this skill set, if you really, really want to learn it and your teachability and your burning desire is just through the roof, you're going to have to live a life a little out of balance for a little while if the goal is to learn this as quickly as possible. Now, it's kind of a mouthful, but I would write that down. You have to live a life out of balance for a little while to learn this, because your goal is to learn this as quickly as possible. And guys, you can live a perfectly balanced life. You can work a few hours a day. You can work out. You can cook meals. You can read for 2 hours a day, play with your kids, take long walks, mow the lawn, do the dishes. You can do all of that and build this business, but it's going to take you much longer to figure this out than somebody who gets obsessed. You might as well live a life out of balance for a little bit, for a season, and become obsessed with this business and learn it faster. Then you can kind of add some balance back in. And guys, I'm in no way trying to say that these things I noted, hanging out with your family, playing with your kids, eating dinner, going on walks, like all those things are important. Okay. And they're a huge part of my life still, but I'm very strategic with my scheduling so I can still have those things. Guys, my calendar, it literally controls my life. And some of you guys, you might be like how I was, and you're actually super resistant to hearing this. You're super resistant to honestly having any type of calendar, any type of schedule at all. You just want to work when you want to work, and you want to figure it out as you come. That was totally me. That was me. I did not want to have somebody put a box around my life, and you just want to work and figure it out as it comes. And it's a great way to waste time every single day. And it's time that you'll never get back. So kind of in short, in summary, we have to learn to schedule everything in time blocks. So, what are my non-negotiable dialing blocks for setting appointments? What are my non-negotiable blocks that I'm going to run my appointments inside of? What are my non-negotiable blocks that I'm going to spend time with my family and have personal time with them? And once you set up those blocks, the goal is to fill the business blocks with as much activity as possible. And then during the family and the personal blocks, you can be fully present, not half in and half out, but all in what you're doing. When you set up time blocks, you can be all in and focused in what you're doing, not half focused because you didn't fill your schedule. So you're kind of, okay, well, I know I'm supposed to be spending time with family, but I really feel like I should be in my office setting more appointments. If you stay focused, you can be all in everything that you do. So here's a big topic I want to start with, and it might be a trigger for some of y'all, but what time do you wake up? What time do you wake up? I'm not anybody's parent here, and I'm definitely not your boss. You don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. like I do, But if you're not waking up until 8 to 10, you're literally never going to be able to compete with someone who wakes up between 4 and 6. And guys, I promise you, I did not start at 4 a.m. A couple of years ago, I was waking up, I was rolling out of bed at 11 o'clock every day. I was a entrepreneur. I was literally rolling out of bed at 11 and I was staying up till 3. And guys, it took me 18 months to slowly work to 4 a.m. But regardless of when you wake up exactly, let's just compare someone who wakes up at 6 a.m. versus somebody who wakes up at 8 a.m. Guys, that's an extra 2 hours per day, which is 60 extra hours per month. So by waking up 2 extra hours early, you have extra time to get 1 whole extra working week every month over everyone else. So how is anybody going to compete with you? If it's you versus the guy who wakes up at 8 a.m., just by you waking up at 6, you're getting 60 extra hours. That is an overtime week of work over everybody else. So if I wake up at 4, I get 2 extra, almost 3 extra working weeks. It's 60 times 2. If I wake up at 4, I'm getting 3 40-hour work weeks over everybody else because I woke up at 4 and everyone else wakes up at 8. And guys, I'm meticulous about making sure that I'm pressing that green button at 8 a.m. every dial day. I always set my first appointment at 8 a.m. and I set my last appointment for between 6 and 8 p.m. depending on my drive time to get home. I create blocks in my schedule, and my goal is to fill those business blocks with activity. So if we're looking at dial day, I'm doing my best to book 15 to 18 appointments for the next 48 hours. I always book out the furthest day first, and then the afternoon and the evening of the next day, because if I have a bad dial day, I want to make sure I can have the next morning to fill in gaps. So let's practically talk about that. So on Thursday, I'm booking for Friday, Saturday. I will book up my entire Saturday, then my Friday night, then my Friday morning. Why do I do that? Because if for whatever reason I do have a rougher dial day, I only get 8, 10 appointments, I want to have Friday morning open to fill in the rest of the gaps to make my Saturday 10 appointments. I want to be able to fill that in and have that available. And one of the things that I like to do, I like to dial in the car. Okay. So I'm still an infield guy. We'll talk a little bit about telesales, but I personally like to dial in the car. Some people like to door knock. I like to dial. And I can't tell you guys how many times that I've been no-showed or porched that I started dialing in the car and I set 2 or 4 more appointments in my gaps, either same day appointments or some of the gaps for the next day. Guys, those policies were the policies that saved me from having a bad week. They saved me. Those extra couple appointments that I booked in the gaps were the ones that saved me from having a bad week. And the question you guys have to ask yourself is, what do you do with the white spaces of your schedule when you're in the field or when you're in between appointments doing telesales? And I'm not going to try to be judgmental because that would be so hypocritical of me, because this has been me. Like I'm speaking of literally what I used to do. And I'll be totally honest. In my white spaces, I've gone and I've gotten food. In my white spaces, I've taken a nap in a gas station parking lot. In my white spaces, I've, started down the YouTube rabbit hole. I've scrolled on social media. I've done literally anything but work. But guys, when I look back at the days where I actually filled in my gaps with money-making activities, there's never one time that I've regretted it. I've never regretted doing more money-making activities. So let's kind of transition here into something a little bit more practical. So I use a physical calendar book. Okay. I'm old school. Physical calendar book. And I can fill it in hour by hour from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I also use my iPhone calendar. So physical calendar book and my iPhone calendar. The physical calendar book, blank book, hour by hour, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I like the physical book because I'm a visual learner and it helps me visually see what are the white spaces in my life and to help fill them in. Okay. A lot of people that say, I don't have enough time, but they don't even realize what their white spaces are. When you can draw it out, you can actually physically see where the gaps are. So after I book everything in my physical calendar, I take a few minutes and I upload it into my iPhone. I set reminders, I put addresses, any info that I need. And then guess what? I'm sitting in one appointment and the next appointment's about to come up. My iPhone will remind me, hey, it's going to take you 45 minutes to get this next appointment, 15 minutes to get this next appointment. And it will remind me to keep me on track. So physical book, so I can see the white gaps, and then iPhone calendar to hold me accountable with reminders. And then I use that when I'm in the car and I just click on the next appointment, GPS, boom, there I go. I'm on my way. And one of the things that I typically do is I set appointments from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. typically when I first got started. And, I think all of us had the same exact thing. You're not very efficient when you first get started. So when I first got started, I was giving myself 90 to 120 minutes per appointment plus drive time because I was sitting around building way too much rapport, spending way too much time in the house with people that weren't going to be sales. And typically I would only have 4 to 5 appointments per run day. And I was driving all over the place to multiple counties. And in my drive time, I would obviously get feedback from managers on how to get better. I'd recruit new agents. I'd listen to FFL podcasts. But then I started to get more efficient in my in-home, and I started to get done quicker. So I was able to start blocking out 1 hour appointments instead of 1.5 to 2 hour appointments. And then I started getting 7 to 8 appointments per day rather than 4 to 5 appointments per day. And that's a pretty big difference, guys. The difference between 10 appointments on a dial day and 14 appointments is massive. 10 to 14, that's an additional 40%. That's 40% more opportunities to help a family, 40% more opportunities to get in front of somebody, 40% more opportunities to get a sale. And then one of the other things I started getting good at is, I was really bad at this in the beginning, and I'm not great at it right now, but I started getting better, is I started getting good at scheduling in an efficient way. So there's some days where when someone would look at my GPS route, they would think I'm crazy or drunk based on what I'm doing. And you have to start to learn how to map your route by having your Google Maps open. So there were some days where I would start here, then I go here and here, and just all day, I'm all over the place, no rhyme or reason. Then I started to get better, and I start to go from north back to south or make it a loop of some sort and figuring out how to be most efficient. So I started to learn how to dial with my Google map open and dropping zip codes in so that if you're about to schedule an appointment, hey, is this zip code 15 minutes from the last appointment or is it an hour? So you can start creating more efficiency. And honestly, there's no way to be perfectly efficient at this if you're in the field. If you're doing telesales, you don't have this issue. You just have to fill in the white space and you could run twice as many appointments if you wanted to. But some days it's not efficient as all. Some days I drive north and I hit a few appointments along the way and have a perfect round trip. And other days I'm bouncing all over the map. And it's something you just kind of get better at with time. But efficiency is possible if you have a schedule that you can look back at and realize where you can get better. So last couple things I want to touch on: working on the weekends. Okay, working on the weekends. Working on the weekends is a cheat code in this business. People want to figure out the shortcuts. There is no shortcut around the work, but if you want to shortcut the results, you work every weekend. It is a cheat code in this business. And I would say as of lately, probably 70% of my production in Family's Help for the entire week has been on only Saturdays. Only Saturdays. So if you're not working Saturdays, you're missing out. People are off. They're in a better mood, and they're in a better mood than the rest of the week. Saturday, one of the other things that happens is I usually stack up on the weekend or the evenings with everyone who's working. So there's a lot of people who work during the week, and you try to schedule on a weekday and they only have so much availability in the evening. So my 4 to 8 p.m. when people are off, I only have 3-4 time slots in there. There's only so many people I can schedule with. Whereas on a weekend, I can go 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with people who worked all week. And I try to make sure that my weekdays are for people who are retired, disabled, work from home. And I save my evening Saturday slots for people who are working. And I think that some people, they struggle with the idea of giving up their Saturday. What do you honestly do on a Saturday? Most people just lay around all day or go out and party. That's what most people do. You may or may not be most people. You might be one of those people who actually goes for a hike and spends time with your family in the park and does something that's positive and creates memories. But most people don't. You might be 1 in 100 people that actually does something positive with their Saturday, but most people just sit around watching TV or party. So when I came to FFL, I decided I wasn't going to miss any Saturdays unless there was something mega important with my family. And in 2 years, I've only done that 1 or 2 times, and it's been life-changing. And we always ask, would you be willing to give up your Saturdays for 2 to 3 years so that you can choose to work whenever you want for the rest of your life? That's the question. Drop a yes in the comments if you'd be willing to give up your Saturdays for 2 to 3 years. Not every Saturday, but the majority of your Saturdays, to be able to choose when to work whenever you want for the rest of your life. It's a lot of yeses. So a lot of people who say they'd be willing to, but what's your actual teachability index? Would you actually do it in practice? Another question that I get all the time is, what do you do when you have things come up in life? Because we all have things come up in life. And the answer is, you got to be flexible with your schedule. If you have an event coming up on a Thursday, set yourself up by dialing a little bit on Sunday evening and Monday morning. Set up some Monday evening appointments and then all day Tuesday, and dial on Wednesday for Friday, Saturday. Simple. There's so many different variations of how that could go based on when the event is. It's okay to change up your schedule for a week as long as you find a way, excuse me, to hit the same activity. So there's been so many times that I've gotten back from a trip on a Monday night, let's say. So what did I do? I dialed on Tuesday for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's a super long dial day. Super long, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. dial day to book up 4 days. Or I get back on a Monday, so I dial on Tuesday for Wednesday and then back to my normal schedule on Thursday. The difference is that top producers don't sacrifice activity when they have something come up in their schedule. They just get prepared ahead of time. So one of the easiest things you can do, guys, is have a monthly calendar. Put your major trips, your major events, your doctor's appointments, your kid's soccer game, whatever it is, put it on a calendar scheduled out so you know ahead of time when things need to be flexible. And you can accommodate to the activity. And that kind of moves into our last topic, which is making time versus taking time. So what is taking time? Taking time is, I'm going onto the calendar, I'm taking time for my business. I'm taking time for my family first. And I'm going to put it in there first and then build everything else around those time blocks. I'm taking time. I'm taking control versus making time. A lot of us, we say, oh yeah, I'll make time for that, but we don't. It's totally a procrastination thing. I'll make time for that when this happens or when I get to this point. That's what a lot of us say. I'll make time to read. I'll make time to work out when, or work out, and I'll make time to spend more time with family when XYZ happens. But from my experience, you probably won't make time for anything. Most of us, we live our life in a super reactive way, and we just kind of let the wind blow us day to day, task to task. Taking time means I'm going to take time for the most important things in my life and then fill in my free time last. I'm going to take time, not make time. Making time is for procrastinators. Taking time is for winners. So I take time for my family because that's a non-negotiable for me. I don't work Sundays. That's not for everybody. That's what I do. Sundays, I typically don't have my phone. I'm intentional with the way that I rest. I'm intentional with the way that I spend quality time with my family. I take time at 4 a.m. to get up and work out and jump in the sauna because I've realized I'm in a better mood and I have a better day when I do that. And I wouldn't always, have time for it if I woke up at 6. If I woke up at 6, there was days when some days I would have time, some days I wouldn't have time, but it was never consistent because some days I'd have an appointment at 8 and I'd have to drive an hour. And some days I have an appointment at 8, I have to drive 15 minutes. So some days I would, some days I wouldn't. I try to make time, but it was never consistent. So now I have to take time for that because it's important to me. I take time to block in the non-negotiable dial day blocks. I'm working. I'm not going to the gym in the middle of the day. I'm not going for a hike in the middle of dial day. I'm not hanging out with my friends in the middle of a dial day. If I set all of my appointments, then sure, I'd love to grab dinner with friends and family, spend some extra time with people. Most people, they don't take time on dial day. They just make time to dial, and they do it in a really unorganized and a really unfocused way. John Wetmore, he's an integrity partner here. He has a huge agency. They're helping, tens of thousands of families every single month. And he says, did you dial all day long? Or did you just take all day to dial? Did you dial all day long, or did you just take all day to dial? And I think that's super powerful because most people, they just take all day to dial. And that's why they're still dialing at 8 p.m. Because I have dinner with my family most every night that I'm home because I focus my effort, no distractions, and I get done early. I take time for running appointments and I maximize my time when I'm in the field. One thing that I do is I take time for running appointments. The way that I do it is I book my first appointment at 8 a.m. and my last appointment at 8 p.m. So like when I'm dialing, even if the person is available at 11 a.m., I'll book it for 8 if they're available there. Even if they're available, they get off at 4, I'll book them for 8 p.m. You want to know why? Because I'm forced to fill in the middle. So I book the top and the bottom of my schedule for every single run day. You want to hold yourself accountable to working. Don't give yourself an excuse to come home early. So I take time, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. when I'm in the field. So I book my first appointment at 8 a.m., my last appointment at 8 p.m. I do that first before I book any other appointments anywhere else on my schedule if I can help it, because now I'm forced to fill in the middle. I'm not going to go out for an 8 a.m. appointment and then come back to my house and hang out in the middle of the day. That makes no sense. When I leave the house, I leave the house and I'm not coming back till the day's over. So I force myself by doing the top and the bottom of my schedule first. So I have to fill in the middle. So I'm not coming back. So I'm going to maximize the work by setting myself up for success by just simply putting myself out of the house, out of my comfort zone, out in the world during the time blocks that I've taken. One thing that I personally need to get better at, I'm sure there's a lot of y'all who need to get better at this too, is taking time to sleep, taking time to rest. Now, if you're waking up at 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., I'm just going to say this, and this might hurt some of your feelings. There's zero reason for you to be up at 1 a.m. There's no reason for you to still be awake at 1 a.m. I'm not your parent telling you when to go to sleep. I personally used to be a night owl. I would stay up till 3 a.m. and wake up at 11 p.m. I used to be a night owl, but if you're honest with yourself, nothing good happens after midnight. Nothing good happens after midnight. Most of the work that you think you're doing at 1 a.m., you could totally do from 4 to 6 to 8 a.m. You could do most of that work early in the morning. Most of the time you're just watching videos. You're not talking to anybody. Who are you talking to at 1 in the morning? You're not doing anything productive, because what is productive activity? Productive activity is booking appointments, sitting with families. It's recruiting new agents. You're not talking to anybody at 1 a.m. You're not messaging people on Instagram at 3 a.m. So go to sleep. Nothing good happens after midnight. Sean says nothing good happens after 10 p.m. The older you get, yes, nothing good happens after 10 p.m. At this point, I can barely make it past 10 p.m. Most of the work, guys, can be done early in the morning. So I'm personally trying to get myself into bed by 10 p.m. every night. It doesn't always happen. There's plenty of days where I get back from a late night in the field and it just doesn't work out. I'm eating dinner at 10 p.m. and I don't get into bed till 11 or 12, and I'm running on 4 hours of sleep. But that's okay, because our body can handle that sometimes. But over a long period of time, you're definitely going to burn out. And I've experienced burnouts more times than I can count, where I joked around about sleeping in a gas station parking lot. I've done that many times. I've burned out and literally, not by choice, passed out in a parking lot. I had someone knock on my window one time in my career to make sure I was okay. So we have to take time, and we have to make sure we're getting at least 6 hours. And I know some of y'all love to sleep, but I promise you can survive on 6. I promise you can survive on 6. You do not need 8 or 10. I know that from a health perspective, they say 8 or 10 hours is optimal, but just so you guys know, and this is kind of a disgusting statistic, if you sleep for 8 to 10 hours a day out of 24 hours, you're literally sleeping away over 1/3 of your life. 1/3 of your life. When I heard that, I was mind blown and disgusted. And I decided I didn't want to sleep for 1/3 of my life. So here's the deal. The way that we spend our time and what we focus on during that time will determine our results, not just in this business, but in anything in life. You have to ask yourself, how deeply do I want to make this work? And how coachable am I? What would I be willing to give up to make it there? And guys, once again, it's not giving up these things forever. It's giving up some of these things for a little bit. What would I be willing to give up to learn this information, to literally make money at will, to be in full control of my financial destiny? What would I be willing to give up? And is that outcome worth getting more strategic with how you spend your time and how you schedule your life? Guys, if you don't have a calendar, if you don't have a schedule at all, because I bet you out of the 95 people on this call, there's some people on here who don't have a schedule or a calendar at all. The first step is you have to commit to just tracking what you're actually doing, tracking what you're doing on a daily basis, and find the white space. I can guarantee you that any top producer, any agency manager, or any integrity partner, they have a calendar. As you hear people say, I don't have enough time, but I guarantee you, if you just grab a calendar and take time for the most important things and actually physically block out the times, after you finish taking time for everything in your life, you would still see white space. After you budget in sleep, working out, everything, you will still see white space. And you could have filled that in with money-making activities. I'm not this extreme, but I've had mentors in the past where they've taken their calendar book and they've taken a green highlighter and they've highlighted the areas that they blocked out for money-making activities, then a different color for administrative tasks like errands, chores, things around the house, checking emails, different color for, family, social, color for working out, growing their mind, and, one for free time. I'm not that crazy. I just simply block out my work schedule and build everything else around it when I'm going to wake up and go to sleep. And I fill in the gaps as best I can. So I've seen people do this. I've seen, what the white spaces actually look like, and it'll be mind blowing when you actually figure that out. So having a calendar and time blocks, it was something that previously would stress me out when I would think about it, because like I said in the beginning of this call, I would feel trapped inside of a box. Like I was creating a box for myself that I couldn't get out of. But I think one of the things that it really did for me is it freed me up. It freed up so much mental energy about trying to figure out what to do next. There's this guy I study on YouTube. His name's Alex Hormozy. Some of y'all have probably heard of him. Some of you haven't. He's on the next level. This dude schedules everything out, but he eats the same thing for every meal, the same breakfast, same lunch, same dinner, every single day. Now, I'm not saying you need to go that crazy, but the reason he does it is so he doesn't have to think. He doesn't have to think about, well, what should we have for dinner tonight? He's just, boom, I know exactly what to do. Less mental energy. Andrew Taylor, he travels around to events. He said that he took all of his colorful clothes and he got rid of them. And he has black pants, black suit jacket, white shirt, black tie. And he wears the exact same thing to every single event. He has a bunch of, plain FFL shirts and plain t-shirts and a couple of hats and jeans. And he wears the same couple things over and over and over and over and over again. So he doesn't have to think about it. Guys, the times that I've noticed that in this business, I've been the most anxious, the times when I've realized that I've been the most worried or lost were the times when I was just sitting around thinking and not working. The times when I was just sitting around thinking and not working. So here's a couple quotes I'll leave y'all with. The chains of worry are forged in idle hours. Okay? The chains of worry are forged in idle hours. If you think about that, when you're not working, you have way too much time on your hands and lots of time to be anxious. I've been guilty of that. If I stop moving, anxiety kicks in. And then one of my favorite authors, who's also a famous U.S. General George S. Patton, he talks about how you have to keep moving. He says, and this is military quotes, he says, the enemy is less likely to hit a moving target. If you dig a foxhole, you dig your grave because you're a sitting target. So I'll say this one again. The enemy is less likely to hit a moving target. If you dig a foxhole, you dig your grave. You're a sitting target. I kind of look at all the worries of life, like the enemy shooting at me. And when I dig in and I just sit and I think, they all hit me at once. If I keep busy and I keep moving, it's harder to hit a moving target. It's harder for those anxious thoughts and those worries to hit me when I'm working. So if you guys want to be a top producer, you want to be a top agency manager here, you want to take control of your life, you need to first take control of your schedule. Everybody have a great night.